Look, bruh, all I'm doing is connecting the dots.
A work of art of the highest quality.
And what will you do with the big money?
But guess I'll make a lot of money, so here I am.
Connect the dots, be clear.
But music was noise, and I thought art was bullshit.
I want to be an artist.
Oh.
I'm not a piece of art! Yes, bravo! I'm a peacock flying into a...
If money is all that you love, then that's what you'll receive.
It really was. It was a work of art.
It's not about money. It's about sending a message.
Hey, just look at that sky. It's a work of art. Ha, nature never knew colors like that.
A man can be an artist. And anything, food, whatever. It depends on how good he is at it. Creasy's art is dead. He's about to paint his masterpiece. It's a work of art.
Make that money, get paid.
Man, this is going to be a masterpiece.
Bothered to connect the dots.
This is an art gallery, my friend. And this is a piece of art.
Simply connecting the dots.
Yeah, well, money talks and bullshit walks, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's how much you know about art.
You can make a lot of money making movies like this.
You have to be a bit of a rebel to be an artist of any kind, I believe.
You're gonna make a lot of money, pal.
Only a highly suspicious paranoid cynic, or someone like me, with an eye for clues and patterns, could possibly connect the dots.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Connect the Dots. I'm your host, Justin Stillmaker, the show where we dig into the fun topic of art and money. And I got to say, every week, I love watching that credit sequence. It gets me psyched and nervous. I burped right before we came on screen, so I'm like a little out of it. But I want to start with our first topic here today. I want to talk about the big thing going on in film right now, which is the movie The Flash and the kind of disaster it's caused all across the board for all kinds of major studios. Turns out most of you haven't seen it, but I was like choosing between which topics to open with, and I was like, wow, the OceanGate submarine story does seem in its weird way connected to art and money to me. That's just sort of funny and sad all at the same time, so I've chosen to skip that, and I want to talk about The Flash. This movie is like, let's see, is such a Frankenstein's monster of everything kind of wrong with studios. It was made across 3 separate regimes at Warner Brothers. You might remember this movie as when David Zaslav took over Warner Brothers, he got rid of this movie starring Batgirl, which also had Michael Keaton returning, had a kind of an interesting directors at the helm, and starred a woman of color. And instead, he decided to release The Flash to theaters that has Michael Keaton and stars Ezra Miller, who has been proven to be pretty problematic in a lot of different ways. I mean, we don't even have to go into that, but like this movie, well, besides it looks like it's going to cost almost $400 million to make if you count in like publicity and how much they're running ads during the NBA playoffs. I believe it. It just has not connected with audiences in any way. And it's, to me, signals a real end to this like IP chase, because it feels like the end of the Zack Snyder's universe of Batman. The Flash is a character we don't really have any investment in. The whole movie felt like, I was like, did I skip something? Am I missing something, a key point? The whole thing just felt sort of like this, like soulless, sucked dry. And I want to be clear, I sort of like the movie. And I'll explain why. But the whole thing felt like grave robbers going through our like collective memory. Like, were you old enough to remember Michael Keaton as Batman? We got you. Oh, you remember Ben Affleck from 5 years? We got you. It's just, there's a part at the end where the Flash is like going through time, and you're meeting, and there's this part where you see Nicolas Cage as Superman, which is like a famous story of internet lore where Nicolas Cage there's like one photo where he was going to be Superman with long hair, directed by Tim Burton. And there's also another famous story attached to it where Kevin Smith was originally one of the writers on it. And he tells this like ridiculous story of working with the producers of that movie that never happened, where they wanted Superman to fight a giant spider. So in this sequence, you see this giant spider show up, and I was like, oh no, they're gonna do Nicolas Cage's Superman. And sure enough, there he is. They like, you know, and it's just like the thing I couldn't get over is like, who is this for? Like, this is not why people go to the movies. This is just a studio and an algorithm going, well, people like Batman, they like this, we want to be just like Marvel, we want to be like the Spider-Verse. Why don't we just mash it all together with no clear, like, you know, we just had a Batman movie last year come out with Robert Pattinson that made a lot of money and was really good. And yet here we are with this Flash that just feels dead on arrival. And it just, the whole thing felt sort of sad. And it just felt like these movies to some degree meant something. Like even the filmmakers like me, where I was like, every summer I would look forward to the big blockbuster. And now it's just like they've taken any uniqueness out of it. And part of it is just because they're constantly, is like one of the few kind of films they make, but it's just like this movie didn't have anyone involved that really cared. It just felt like IP they had to make. Like back in the day, before the MCU, different producers controlled different superheroes, and they would like make low budget movies to hold on to the rights. So it would make like a Captain America movie for like less than $1 million because they need to make one every 6 years or they lose the rights. And so that is what this felt like to me. It was like, we need to make a Flash movie. No one wants it. No one seems to care. And yet I kind of liked it. It is a perfect one. I grew up watching the Michael Keaton Batmans. And so like seeing him as a 71-year-old Batman, it worked. The nostalgia button hit. It's also really odd. The movie opens with like the Flash saving these babies, and at one point he puts a baby in a microwave, and it just like it feels so wrong. Like so many things feel so wrong about the movie that I was like, wow, they really did it. I listen, I'm not telling you to go out and see it. I found the lead, Ezra Miller, as complicated as they are, charming. They interact with themselves a couple times, but in general, it's just like Warner Brothers just keeps missing. They had their Shazam movie flop. They had this movie's going to be a huge flop. They have two more. They're looking at like losing $1 billion, not to mention all the other terrible things they're doing over there that I'm sure I'll be talking about next week. But it's just, there's something about this movie that just feels like all the wrong things of like art and money, like that I always like to talk about. And it's just like, who is this for? It just seems, if an algorithm created a movie, it would be this movie. And it really makes you appreciate the art. So, I mean, I couldn't go another week without talking about it with you guys all. Now, on to my favorite part of the show, where we get to bring in a guest who might actually know a few things about Nicolas Cage as well. I want to bring on my guest, Jen Bosworth Ramirez.
Hi.
Hello. How you doing?
Good. I love that. In that whole intro and those credits, the whole thing was really cool.
Isn't it cool? Yeah, I get kind of psyched, and then right like towards the end, I get this like nervous, like, oh no,
Sure.
I don't know how actors do it. Like I like.
Oh, it's awful. It's awful. I think it's just an awful feeling, but it also is the closest to sort of death that I ever get, which is also a thrill. So it's a weird thing, but yeah, it's all. I know that feeling of like, okay, here we go. It all could be awful. Here we go. Okay.
I had like a burp, like as it was like I was like, oh no, I cannot open on a burp. I'm not that kind of host.
No.
Well, so I'm gonna start off a little and be like, well, you know both sides of what we're talking about too, because Jen is a great actress, but also I said actor, and
I don't care. Listen, people, that debate is so. I'm like, listen, just pay me. I don't care what you call me. Like, great. So anyway, yes, go ahead.
And writer, like they've just finished their second TV show pilot.
I did.
That they're getting rave reviews on, and we wrote a film together.
which I love. I love our horror film. I just have
Yeah.
to say, our horror comedy is just delightful every time I open it, which is weird to say as your own thing, but
Yeah.
when you write with someone else, you just discover the magic of the other person's stuff. I'm like, it has one of my favorite lines that anyone. I'm not going to spoil it, but it just includes the word pirates. Let's just say pirates.
It is very fun writing with it's writing by yourself can be such a like chaotic solo adventure that it's really fun to check in with someone and be like, how does this make sense? Because like you don't have that till the very end where you're like, I could probably use this earlier, someone to check in with and be like, is this too crazy?
Correct.
Now, but so the one thing I like to do with the guests is like, how do we know each other? Because like one of the things I'm always talking about is like how the weird wild career you'll have if you go into art. So yeah.
So there was somehow I got an audition notice for someone's thesis film at DePaul, and this was like what 2015. I don't even.
That feels
know.
right. Yeah, it feels like somewhere in that range. Yeah,
16, 15. I don't know, somewhere in there. And I went to DePaul for the audition or the call. God, must be both. I don't know. Anyway, I showed up and you were there,
right?
Because you were helping. Now, in my mind, I had it that you wrote and directed this film, which is not true.
No, I did write it, and I was helping someone who I've collaborated with closely on lots of projects, but he was in school to finish like doing his grad and he had to direct, and I was like, I think he's someone who's very talented, but not at the time was not as comfortable around actors, and I was like, well, why don't I kind of sit here?
That was it was like a really good thing. And that movie we made, and I had a blast, and I thought you were amazing. And I was like, oh, this person is really funny. Justin's really funny, but also really great with actors, which is so rare for a lot of us to be, it's hard to deal with actors. And it's also a skill to give notes that are both course corrective, as I like to say, and hopeful and not like you're terrible, but also get the actor to make the change that really that you need to see in order for the film or the television show to work.
Yeah.
So you're able to do that. And I remembered you, and then we just stayed in touch, and then we both moved back to I moved back to LA, you moved to LA, and we wrote a movie together. So that's how we've known each other probably like 7
years now or something.
Yes.
Yeah, it's that thing where I'm a big believer in this is like if you meet people who are just love what they do and have high energy, I like to surround myself with them. Like I didn't know we'd end up writing a screenplay together.
No.
Did not see that coming, let alone a horror comedy. I don't think you even knew you wrote horror at the time.
Oh, I didn't know anything. I don't know anything, but it's the best genre, man. But anyway,
So how did you now I'm just gonna ask questions I want to know, because like when you're friends with something, you do like the weird thing about working in film is like you have your friendship jump off point is like you're already established in your way, so you never get to go that like first date backwards, right? So like how did you get into acting? Like what got you to
that's such a funny question. Yeah, I was one of those kids that wasn't really good at anything. Like literally, like not that I was a bad person, but like, kids like my sister was really focused and really knew that it was into things and curious. And I literally was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then in high school, I wasn't a theater kid. Like I didn't, I wasn't. I mean, I stumbled.
You didn't seem too cool to be a theater kid.
Oh, you're that mostly. If by cool you mean smoking Parliament lights in the garage.
Yeah, that is my definition of cool. That's...
Okay, well then I was cool. So, but yeah, I stumbled into acting by playing Agnes Gooch in Auntie Mame, which is they made it was a musical, and then there was a stage play, and the character is like a real character actress. Agnes Gooch, the name, and I played that character, and when I was maybe a senior or something, and what I found was, even though I wasn't the lead and I wasn't beautiful and I wasn't all these things, the director said one day in rehearsal, I was just doing the Agnes Gooch thing. Basically, I was probably just like literally imitating the movie I had seen, but that's okay. Right. So I did the Agnes Gooch thing, and I remember the director going, "This play is a mess. thank God for Agnes Gooch. Like, thank
Wow.
God we have Agnes Gooch. And I remember thinking, oh, that's really great. I get to save the day, be funny, and also not have to look glamorous and beautiful. Like, that's her whole shtick, is that she's not. And so that's really what, acting, I didn't know. I applied to like 10 schools, like all different kinds. My mom was like, you know, an immigrant. She was an immigrant from Colombia, and she was like, you have to go to college. And I was like, there's no gap year, right? Like, you have.
Yeah.
So I just picked, and I got in shockingly to the conservatory for acting. And I say shockingly because I legit was like, I didn't know what I was doing. I did monologues that were inappropriate. I didn't know. So that's how I got into acting conservatory. But like, I never was one of those kids that was like, you know,
be a star.
Or I went to the theater and fell in love. I hear a lot like fell in love with the magic of the theater.
Yeah.
I literally was probably thinking about, could I get a corn dog at intermission? Like, that's where my mind was.
Well, I feel like, you know, like being an actor, it gives you an excuse to smoke parliaments and make out with cute people. Like, there's like, I think there's underrated things to like, just like how people end up in it. And then they find
That's true.
Right?
I think that it gives you permission to, just like be real weird, and also to meet other really interesting people that you would never meet, like ever. And you're like, whoa. So yeah, I do think that's one of the perks of that. Yeah.
So you got in the conservatory at DePaul, was that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you love, this is another question I just always want to know, like, what do you prefer, theater or film?
Oh, that's so great. It's
And which
all
one do you
like,
prefer? If you might be, or like, you're like, yeah, or like, what do you think you're better at?
okay. Oh God. I don't know that I'm good at any of it, but I really like television in that it's petrifying, and also television and film sets are so so collaborative that it is like, I think theater is so fun because it's like you can really revel in this sort of emotional connection you feel, and like you're doing the work on stage and everyone sees the work. But film and TV, it's like, oh, speaking of money, you're like, oh, this is a business, and this is a big business, and everyone has a part to play. And really quickly, I learned, I booked my first job in 1999. I learned, like, it does not revolve around me, and nobody gives a shit, and we better just do your part and get off, you know?
That's true. Like, I never thought, like, because film has so much equipment and crew, it really becomes money versus passion, right? And I think that's what I think actors in the end always love about theater more, is like, you can just do it in a black box. I mean, you can just like, it's different. It's just like,
yeah, and I like meeting. So I'm the kind of human that loves to know the people that are doing like the grip work, the lighting work, because they like remind me of people I knew in my childhood. My dad was a real, he would have been a grip kind of a guy, and so that is my jam. And meeting the characters that are a part of the world of a set, like those. I mean, it's like a carny type atmosphere.
It is like that. I think you're like, I always forget, like when I would PA and stuff, and I was like, so I'm going to be a director, and I'm like, I have the tunnel vision, right? And then you just meet dudes who are like, would have clearly just been like an auto mechanic, but they're like, happen to be like the Steadicam operator or the dolly grip. And you're just like, oh, they just found like another version of a blue collar job that's just surrounded by this glitz, but it's really
so wild.
They're great. They're the best characters.
They're the great. And like the makeup, on my last shoot I did, the makeup artist was like she was a dirt bike racer in Mexico for most of her.
Give me her info. Side note that I need to book this person.
Amazing and just wild and like crazy, and like lives in Mexico, is like blonde, blue-eyed, but like raw, like she's lived a life. And I was like, oh, I love her, and we had a blast. So and then it's over, and then you may never see them again. Directors from different countries. Like, I like that. And I also think that it's just a way different, it's a way different vibe. And also theater, I do think, it takes itself so seriously, and there's some real good work being done in theater, but I don't know that I need to do that kind of work.
it also is the one with less money somehow. It's not exactly film as Luke. But the thing that always gets me about theater that I really like, so like I think I view film as more collaborative because it just needs so many more people. Where like the writer and the director and the actors, they're it. Like it's less involvement. Like I know I'm speaking a little out of turn. I've only directed one play, but like it feels a little less collaborative. That being said, that opening, every time I see a play and like that energy of like that when they come out, you can just feel the months of work in a way that like you almost get choked. Like it doesn't matter how bad the play is. That first,
Yes, it is. What it is for me is, and I am known for going to see high school and community college productions of musicals and plays where I know no one in them because of that. And the feeling, and the reason is the unbridled enthusiasm and commitment to whatever is going on stage, no matter how bad the thing might be. The amount of hope and the amount of like pride that it is so inspiring to me, even if it's terrible. In fact, probably the worse it is, the better, because it's sort of, it shows me that it's not really about being good. It's about like confidence. Like a lot of these people, these productions, the confidence is if they're like Sir Ben Kingsley, and really you're like, they can't sing, and it's brilliant. I'm like, this is what I need more of in my life.
It's true. Like some of the best, I've seen some incredible Steppenwolf plays, but I've seen some incredible team plays where you're like, dude, it is burned into my brain.
Production of Les Mis that I saw in Lake Forest, Illinois, was so good that I was like weeping, and they were so committed in this, and it was like literally, it wasn't even in the theater, it was like in this weird gym converted thing because they were like doing some construction, and I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. People are crying, and like I couldn't believe it.
The greatest play I've ever seen, and I can't even tell this story. So my mom is very religious, and she worked at this place in Chicago called the Miracle Center. It's like on the west side, and they have a ton of connections to Lin-Manuel Miranda, and so they got the rights. It's a very kind of like, it's after school. It's not quite religious, but it's like a lot of teens that are more likely in church and pent up, we'll say. And so they got the rights to do In the Heights as like, so I go to this show that was nothing but, I would say probably very hormonal 16-year-olds acting out a play that's all about sex, that I was like, at the act break, I was like, I have to leave. This is inappropriate.
Yes.
It was wild. I was like, yes, you can't do this with teenagers. It was like, I'll never forget it. I was like,
yeah, it's as if they're really in the thing.
Yeah,
they're not acting.
No, not at all. It was too realistic to that point that I was like, I was with the person I was with. I was like, we need to go. Like this is. I don't want to see what the.
Witnessing actual puberty and actual sexual coming of age on stage. It's almost like it's like a snuff film you're witnessing.
Yes, it was. Yes, that's close to what it was like. And I was like, I can't be here. This is not appropriate.
Right.
I mean, good for them. Get it out however you need to get it out, right? So okay, so you went to Los Angeles. You live there now, like me, but like you went out in the 2000s as well.
Yeah, so I moved in 2000. I moved, and I thought I was going to be an actor, because I had some early success in a play at Steppenwolf. I know, and like right when I graduated, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be famous, because the week after graduation, I booked a Steppenwolf lead in a Steppenwolf play, an episode of ER, and a recurring or multiple episode arc on Early Edition in the same 2 weeks.
Kyle Chandler's, you had a chance, you were to see with Kyle Chandler?
And he was so nice and beautiful and like amazing.
So
that
beautiful,
guy was.
dude.
That was so. I was like, and it was my first experience on a set where he was so beautiful. I was like, oh my gosh, I've made it. Like I have made it.
Yeah.
But that was, and then I thought, okay, so I've made it. Now I got to move to LA, and I moved to LA, and I didn't act again for years and years. Like I just got there, and I was like, oh, this is out of my pay grade. Like, I don't know what these people are doing,
Yeah.
but I don't belong here. And I just felt I couldn't get an agent, and I worked in a bookstore, and that was fun. And then I sort of fell into, and then I got my job working for Nic Cage's production company, and that and then acting went right out the window because like you couldn't be an actor and work for him. I don't think that was like.
I mean, since you brought it up, I obviously was leading you there, but like it's So what was that like? How did you fall into that job?
It's the weirdest story, and I've told it before, and it's like it's so weird to hear it. So I worked at this bookstore, okay, and one of the part-timers there, I was a full-timer. I made $7.25 an hour at this metaphysical bookstore, and I in West Hollywood, and I lived right down the
bookstore?
street.
Is it still
The
around?
Bodie Tree. No, they sold it for like millions of dollars. But I met like Prince there. I met so many people. Alanis Morissette, Rick Rubin, the whole deal.
Yeah.
So I'm working there, and there was a model. Her name was legit Monique. I remember, and she was a part-timer, and she was super nice. And she literally said to me, I heard it because I was talking to her. I'm like, I gotta make more than $7.25 an hour. And she was like, listen, I heard about this job opening at a production company, and I don't want to do it because I'm going to be a model professionally, and that takes up a lot of time. But maybe you could do it. It was so funny, and I was like, okay, I'll do it. And I showed up, and I literally, when I gave my resume, I faxed my resume.
Wow.
And I went to the interview, and Nic was not there, but they didn't tell me who it was for. The office was covered in posters of his movies. And I thought, okay. And it was a production company on Sunset Boulevard. And I got there, and I really liked the people, his producing partner. And they were like, what are you doing with your life? Like, how did you end up here? I'm like, I was an actor. And they're like, oh, okay, don't say that. So on my resume, I remember they had, before I met Nic, because that's the final step is you have to meet Nic Cage, right? And they said, can you white out your acting degree with whiteout? Because he doesn't like actors, or I think maybe the thing was like they would all be using him to try to become famous.
I get that.
I respect it, but I'm just laughing that it was like whited out, and then I whited it out and then faxed it to set where he was filming Wind Talkers.
Wow.
Like
Hawaii or whatever.
Well, I don't know where. No. They took me in a van to the desert to meet him. They were shooting in like the Mojave, somewhere around. But anyway, but I just remember whiting it out and then faxing it, and then the whiteout got on the fax. It was a big mess, but like, so that's how I got that job. And I met him, and I wouldn't say we hit it off because nobody really hits. I mean, we were in a trailer in the desert, and he had half his face blown off because in the movie he gets his ear blown off. And I literally was like, your ear is so realistic, I'm having trouble. And he's like, it's fake. And I'm like, yeah, I know it's fake, Nic, but I'm literally 2 inches from you, and you have no face.
So you were there for the true like there was the great art actor. Again, I'm a huge Nicolas Cage fan, as you know, but like you're there for the run of stardom to crash, basically, right?
Dude, I'm there from right after Academy Award for Leaving Las Vegas, right? And then I left, and it was really hard. When I left, we were talking, what did we do? Like, I can't remember, but it wasn't great. It was like, oh no, I left. I remember the last premiere I went to, which was really hard, was Captain Corelli's Mandolin around that time.
Yeah.
So I remember that story is I just got out of I was late. I'm sweaty. It's in Beverly Hills. I'm driving a beat up Honda. I'm not going to valet. And I go, and I had to go on the red carpet because I was late, and I hear cheering, and I'm like, oh no. And I look around, there's Tom Cruise, because he was dating Penelope Cruz, who's in the movie at the time. And all I see are these huge teeth. The man had for a while, I think, like
braces. He had braces,
but then he had huge veneers. Like he had gotten him 3 sizes too big. I mean, he's not an unattractive person, but I was like, oh, and he's little, and these teeth, and I was like, oh my god. And so that was and that's around the time where I was like, oh, this is. So I really saw I liked Adaptation. I liked Matchstick Men, all that era, and then it kind of went.
Were you there when he directed the movie with Franco?
Okay, so
Sonny?
that's my claim to fame is I like to say that I am responsible for Casey Affleck not getting the lead in that film, which he might actually be happy about.
Yeah.
But he was a total jerk to me in the office, like during
Yeah.
auditions, like a jerk. And at the end of the day, Nick asked me who I would rather see in the movie, James Franco or Casey Affleck. And I said, the guy is like a male prostitute in the movie.
Yeah.
And I said, I would rather sleep with that bottle on Sunset Boulevard than engage in anything with Casey Affleck. And they cast James Franco. Now, look,
Oh, wow.
the movie wasn't so great, but whatever. So that's that. I was there. That was right during my
Okay,
time.
I have to add, I'm bringing a bunch of worlds together. So I, at some point, was like, one of my favorite things to do is just like on the weekend, me and my wife Thea, we will like drive around and go into like mansions that are doing open houses. And
Sure.
right. And so there was a realtor there who was like a full character, former act. You had the energy. Like she was the cartoon version. And like, she apparently was a child actor on Charles in Charge. But she was Josie Davis.
Davis. She's in Sunny.
Yep.
So Josie Davis. So Josie Davis was like a big get for us. Like, I don't know why we were like looking for funding probably or something, and we really hyped up the fact that Josie Davis was playing and Mina Suvari. They were in it.
Yep.
And I think that was like it was during Mina's like she had just fallen
American Beauty.
after post that. And anyway, Josie Davis. Oh, I haven't thought about her in so long, and I remember thinking, like we passed up a lot of people to give her that. She got that role.
It's all over her reel, so she appreciates it. She is a wonderful Instagram follow, Jen. I highly.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, it's.
Does she know? Is it irony or no? There's no. Okay. Oh boy. Okay.
That being said, wonderful like tour guide of a house in Los Feliz, and she was just like she just started texting us, and I was like,
she talk about her time as an actor while
she
was
did not, but like she had. I've spent enough time around actors to know former actors, and like,
and also she has a face that you.
She has a face. She looks very familiar, and like.
Yeah. You're like Saved by the Bell, 90210.
Yeah, like she was like, if you look up her IMDb again, like I think this is impressive that like she's a worker, right? Like she's like, I want to be an actor, and she put in the time, and she keeps at it, even she doesn't care if she has to. She's like still like going after, NCIS and all. It's like that's the career. I think that's like like. Which gives me my next question. So at some point you're doing acting, you're working for. Okay, one more Nic Cage. I know you've said he was quite nice, if not a little clueless.
I mean, just completely, in his own world.
What was like the weirdest request you got? Like, was there like a regular odd request?
There were so many. Well, I think the weirdest thing that happened to me, it was so dumb and it was so weird. Okay, so he got married during my time there to Lisa Marie Presley, rest her soul. So, okay, so they were having this secret in quotes wedding, okay? Except it wasn't a secret. But anyway, my job was to get all the presents from our office to their house or I think it was to one of his many houses. And so anyway, Francis Ford Coppola, who's his uncle, sent a ginormous, this huge bottle of wine from his vineyard, like a life-size bottle of wine, like a short, small person bottle of wine. And my job was to get that bottle from the office to Bel Air. But we weren't allowed to use a messenger service because they wanted everything top secret. So I'm like, how is this going to happen? So I'm literally rolling a bottle of Coppola wine down Sunset Boulevard. Like, this is going to break and I'm going to be fired, or it's going to get away from me and kill someone. And then I'm going to go to jail. It was huge. And I'm sweating, a lot of sweating involved in my job.
Yeah,
it's hot in LA and our cars were parked in this garage on a hill and it went downward and no one would help me because I was the lowest person in the office. So I'm like, it was awful. I tried a dolly and that didn't work. So that was like one of the weirdest things. And I was like, can we not just have messengers, no, it has to be top secret. I'm like, everybody knows they're getting married. Who cares? It's so weird.
So, based on all these stories, when did you start pivoting to writing as well? Like
during that time, not shockingly, I was like, wait a second, this is the weirdest. Like my friends in the Midwest would say, like I would tell them stories about picking up Lisa Marie Presley's engagement ring at Tiffany's, and like they were like, you have to write about this because but I signed an NDA, right? But it was a 10-year whatever. They're like, this is not normal stuff that a 24 to 30-year-old is doing with their life. And so I started writing, and then that writing, I started probably writing in like 2003, and that really led to a lot of like writing comedy, essays, stand-up stuff, and then
you did like a pretty big theater run, like performance show, right?
I did a show about Nic Cage and cancer and all the things, and that toured, and that went to New York in 2013. And then I sort of pivoted, and then I became a therapist for felons, which is a whole nother Oprah. And then that was a weird time in my life. And then I went back to acting around right when I met you, like 2014, 2015. And I continued to write as I acted. So
that makes sense.
I really got into doing more writing, and then I was like, let me try my hands at acting again, and then I started booking things, and I like it. I still have that feeling of like I have no idea if I'm any good, but I give it a shot. You know what I mean? Like I'm a team player. It's good to have me on your team.
Yeah, like it's also one of those things. Like one of the reasons I wanted to do this show is I've had this idea of like, everyone always thinks of like you're either trying or you're successful, and in fact, there's like a million in betweens where you can be in a
like
national
Josie
commercial.
Davis.
Yes, and I think that's like we've all had like weird jobs. Yours happened to be incredible in that you were hanging out with Nic Cage at the height of Nic Cage.
Oh my god, my favorite thing! I just remembered that like when we were at his house, he had the Danger Will Robinson robot in his lobby, and that was weird. And it would. I don't know if it beeped or I don't know. But anyway, my favorite thing was he had these, I was smoking at the time, cigarettes, and he would smoke on occasion or just had around these amazing Nat Sherman cigarettes that were multicolored, candy colored. And I thought that was the coolest thing. And then until I got banned because I was like smoking too many and I got in trouble. I just loved them. Anyway, but yeah, my jobs were weird. I've had weird jobs. And also you're right. There is no one way to do this. And also you have people like I'm a national commercial of mine is running right now. And I literally just got offered a job paying $12 an hour to teach camp in Ventura.
Which one are you going to take?
I mean, I'm often offered jobs, and I think it's just part of the deal where I'm like, am I going to do what? And then I figured it was a big win for me to say, actually, I can't do this for $12.
How did you? Again, at some point, we should just all list out all our jobs or something. I want.
Oh, like, I have a list somewhere. Yeah.
How did you get the WGN in Chicago where you were a radio host?
So Nick DiGilio, film critic, and WGN was on there forever before he left. My husband was obsessed with Nick DiGilio, like obsessed. My husband's not in the business. He's not, and he loved Nick DiGilio. I started listening to the show. Then I was like, you know what? I want to be a guest. Like, I think Nick and so I started calling in and writing in, and then I was on WGN, and they literally were like, do you want to start work? It was a dream. Do you want, except they gave me no training. So the first night they were like, okay, and you're on the air. And this is live radio, and it's like millions of people. And it was a really hard learning curve, let's just say. But yeah, they offered me a job, and I was like, can I work here? And they were like, okay, we'll think about it. And then one day they're like, do you want to drive the ship yourself? And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, we have some slots open. I was like, okay. So I did that. I've had so many weird. I worked at the rectory in a Catholic church, just, all kinds of things.
I also, that was the first time I've heard you bust out the Nic Cage impression. So I needed to.
Oh, my favorite is Jan. What's a deli? And I said, what? He didn't know what he said. He's at a restaurant. What's a deli, Jan? I was like, a deli is like a diner with a more Hebrew flair. Like, that's what I said. He's like, oh, I got it. He got it. It was like, I thought that was a perfect definition.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's succinct writing right there. Okay.
He was nice. I liked him. I still like him. He lives in Vegas, I think.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna ask one last question because it's someone who's writing a project with you that we're almost done with, and you've talked about this. Why do you think murder comes up in all your writing?
Oh, I mean, I think I am obsessed with the idea. It's interesting. So, okay. So, one, I like to take stuff out on people, and I can't do it in real life. Every writer's that way. But also, I was thinking about it. I used to say, like, I write about the way things are, not as I want them to be. And that's not true. I write about the way things are, and then I add a little flair of, I want people to get what they really deserve, both good and bad. And it is so fun as a woman in middle age to be able to show that, like, things can get real bad and things can get really gross and really ugly, and it's okay. And I love that. I think for me, murder, horror, and like dark comedy is one way for women to be able to say what they really want to say without being labeled a nut or a bit, whatever, like the bad, it's like
you can process. You can, like, it's like this is of a woman is a very violent thing that it's
also,
like.
Listen, horror people are much cooler and nicer than anyone else I've ever
nicer.
met, and welcoming.
It's I don't know if I've talked about this show. I know I've talked about you. It's like switching from comedy to horror was like the best career change I ever made.
Dude, I'm telling you right now, horror folk are like, we like you. You're funny and weird, and come on and be with us. It's like really welcoming versus comedy where they're like, you're not funny, get out. We hate your guts.
It is,
and I'm like, whoa,
calm down. That is like
guys, and it's always guys. I'm like, guys, let's all right, everybody.
Jen, do you have a heart out, or do you want to stay on for the next segment? It's something new I'm trying.
I'll stay on.
Okay. So what we do next is usually what I do is kind of a diagnosing of a subgenre that comes out of like that kind of art and money.
Great.
And so I'm going to go through a couple movies, and I figure we can maybe just chat about them a little bit. So
much more fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So this week's theme is Rocky clone movies. So that's like Rocky was the biggest movie in the world. People forget, like, when it came out, it like was up for Best Picture. It was up for all. It was one of your favorites, or
of my favorites. And
Perfect.
Actually, in Rocky 6 is my favorite monologue of all time. But anyway, go ahead.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh, the like how hard you get hit. Yep, that's one of my.
He's talking to Vito Farmiga or whatever the guy's name is who gets blown up in the cooker on This Is Us. That monologue is brilliant. But anyway, go ahead.
I play that monologue to myself all the time when I'm having a down day. Like it, or I send it to friends when I know that it's like so good. I like
such a good monologue. I mean, his face can't move because he has had so much plastic surgery, but I don't care. It's the words anyway.
Yeah. So, and like again, I've thought about doing a podcast about Stallone because I think he's such a weird, bizarre genius. That's a whole other thing. But one thing that is true is that Rocky comes out and is like the biggest movie on the planet. And so, of course, Hollywood starts to replicate it, and they start to replicate it in weird and interesting ways. So the first obvious Rocky clone is the Karate Kid. And like, it's really obvious because it's directed by the guy who directed Rocky. But it's also
I didn't know that.
It also stars a little Italian kid moving to Los Angeles. So they take the fish, they add a little bit to it, right? It's like the fish out of water.
Yeah.
They have the Mr. Miyagi's obviously Mickey. It's almost called Mr. Mickey. It's unbelievable how like it's just trying to do Rocky. And you know what? It works. I love
it. Works.
But like the Karate Kid, like as I've gotten older, I realized was like such an important movie to me as a like Italian kid who moved from Chicago to Los Angeles with his single mom. I was like, oh, and then like would fight with people all the time. I was like, this movie is like way too close to home for me.
I think you're obviously not alone.
Yeah.
It's a whole generation of people. Thus, Cobra Kai comeback. Yeah.
No, it's I also think that's interesting, like kind of being a part of that generation. That's like I remember in like one of my student films, someone like said like sweep the leg, or like we start like you can start to bubble up as references, and now it's like this huge Netflix sensation.
Well, also, FYI, Billy Zabka, brilliant actor as an adult.
Yeah.
When I watch Cobra Kai, I'm like, this human gets it. Talk about acting. This guy knows what I'm like, I keep shouting to people like he's a genius actor, and they're like, okay. I'm like, no, he's great. So anyway, I'm obsessed.
Yeah, and like I just like it's such a it's clearly the money was like we need a movie just like Rocky. Boom,
Right.
they were like we got to put a twist on it. It's like a classic example of the art money, but like they made a great movie that like 40 years later, like yeah. So the next example of a Rocky clone that I think truly is the ultimate example of art using money to make something unique based on the rules. So let me tell you, the movie comes out in 1980, so it's right after Rocky. It's about Italian boxer that loses all the time, and it's produced by the producer of Rocky. I am talking about Raging Bull.
Raging Bull.
No one
different take.
Different take. Very different. Scorsese was like, oh, so if I make a boxing movie starring an
Italian.
Like you can almost see the pitch and lies they told the money.
Elevate it and like also like elevate it and say, okay, this is Karate Kid meets Rocky meets like and Mean Street. Like you've just done a different version, of the same movie.
Like he literally he doesn't win the big fight, but he has his moment like you couldn't knock me down, like you know. And so like to me that is like he takes what the studio mandates, right? They're like, we want another Rocky movie. He's like, I got you, and then makes the best movie, one of the best movies of the 80s. Like it's such a funny flip, but it is so obviously they were like, we're gonna get another Rocky.
Hilarious.
And that's what had to happen, right? Like
that's like the art house version of Rocky. That's what that is.
Yeah, it was like they were able to flip it. They were just like art versus money. Art won this one.
Oh my God. Art won this one. Yeah.
And so now these are all 70s, 80s movies. You're like, oh, they're still making Rocky movies? Yes, they are. I don't know if you've seen it, but the movie Warrior starring Tom Hardy and Joel Edgerton is
2011.
2011. It's such a dude movie for sure. But like it basically was like, okay, what if we did Rocky, but they're both underdogs is basically the twist on it. And you're rooting for both. It's just, they're like, it can't be boxing. What if it's like MMA?
Because then it could get like, then people will be like, oh, it's not Rocky. It's MMA. And it's in New York, right?
It's like, I think they might be, they're like, I think they're like Jersey or New York.
Jersey.
They couldn't be Philly. You're right. I didn't notice that. You're right. It would be too on the nose if it was Philly.
No, it's gotta be Jersey or
Yeah, but Nick Nolte is totally doing the Mickey role. Like this movie I think is like underratedly sad and like nuanced and like a little better than the kind of like sports kind of movie you think it is.
Yeah, and like the one of the Wahlbergs did a boxing one too, right?
Yeah, like the fighter. Yeah, which is I thought about putting that on this list. So I think Warrior is like a much more sensitive movie about masculinity and fathers, and like it hits
but it's
all
Rocky.
It's Rocky. It's definitely Rocky, right? They're just like, but you're rooting for both. And so I was just like, again, that's almost 30 years later. The Rocky clones are still happening. But I also want to give a shout out real quick to all the other. There's so many Rocky clones from the 80s. So like Flashdance is just Dance Rocky.
Yes. Dance Rocky. You got that. You got that right. It's Dance Rocky.
Yeah, it's then there's I don't know 7 Rocky sequels. I happen to think almost all of them are great and unique, but
I love them all.
Yeah. And his monologue, like think about that. The monologue we're talking about is from 2006. They're still making we still
and also it's I think there's something magic in the writing. Okay. Yes. There's something in all of the one I don't know. Anyway. It's a fairy tale, right?
It's a fairy tale. We all relate. It's a blue collar fairy tale,
right?
But and Flashdance, I could just go on and on about. Came out the year I was born. It is, I think,
love
one of
that movie.
I think it invents the MTV aesthetic. It's like pure gloss. It's like such a gorgeous looking movie.
It's sexy, super sexy.
It's a movie where like. Other than like it's Dance Rocky, there is no plot to this movie. It's like
no plot. It's like sexy and musical. It's like a musical, but not on ice. They add ice and dance, right? Because aren't they dancers? One of her best friends a skater.
Stripper. Well, because that's
isn't someone an ice skater?
Maybe there's only a scene on. Well, no, but they both work at a fake strip club where they don't take their clothes off. They just like do number like.
So I mean, I think this is then gives also birth to some stripper genre films, a la striptease. Like, so okay, but it's like a fake. Yeah, it was like
and
it
it
was
takes
like a
place in
fun
Pennsylvania,
strip
so
club.
it's right down the road from
Rust
Rocky.
Belt, steel
Yep.
mills, all that stuff.
Yeah. So and like the other thing like morphs from the Rocky clones, like you get like best of the best and power. You get the martial arts version.
Oh, also there's hockey. There's a
Yeah.
hockey version.
Oh yeah. It's just it's
endless. Wait a minute, this makes me
Slapshot,
want to
yeah.
legit write Rocky, but see if we can write Rocky in every single profession. Bakery, the bakery. They've done it with the Big Night, like the chef.
Yeah.
They've done it. Oh my gosh, we could do. I wonder, like, we could do it. I wonder. I'm just like, could we make Rocky, but a mailman or mailwoman version?
What would or have they done?
Or
I'm sure there's a
something.
race car driver. I'm trying to think of like
car driver, yeah, but I want to take it into weird genres like Zookeeper,
baker's
Rocky.
fun. I like a baker or like a restaurant. But well,
anyway,
Jen, thank you so much for staying on for the whole show. I'm gonna pivot to my next one, but we will talk soon. We got pages to talk about.
Yay!
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye. All right. Okay, so now let me look at my notes. Okay, so now we're on to who won art this week. I'm staring at myself too much here. The movie I'm picking is a surprise to me, if I'm being completely honest with you. This is a movie that came out on Netflix, my least favorite of the streaming channels. Yeah, I said it. I hated the first one. I thought the first one was pure Netflix algorithm garbage. It's made by written by one of the Russo brothers who, wow, I wish them luck. Don't seem to like, there's just something I don't like about them. But it turns out they made a piece of movie I really liked, which is Extraction 2 is who I have winning art this week. And I mean that because they were able to go in, calibrate what Netflix wanted. They're like, we need a sequel. We need to have action. And you know what? This movie really found a way to like build on what didn't work in the first one. It's both ones are directed by Sam Hargrave, but he's like kind of the stunt coordinator. His like team is does the John Wick movies, does a lot of the Marvel fight scenes. He knows how to build a fight scene. And I feel like as a director, the first one, he was just like kind of all over the place. And I just thought this one really is a more studied movie. It has less fight scenes, so there is like a 30-minute long one take fight scene. But in general, it's tighter, it's smarter. You can tell he was studying the really good action directors. I'm convinced he watched James Cameron because he was like, I'm not going to have 17 fight scenes. I'm going to have 3 really good fight scenes, which I think is always just better. Just like have a solid set piece. And honestly, this is like a violent piece of direct-to-video action trash. And there's no movie genre I love more than that. And like, I'm constantly wanting people to make movies like that. And these guys sort of showed the way. Like, there's an audience for this. It's the number, as usual, whatever the big thing is. The other thing I think it changed when they made this one is it's not, I think the first one was set in Mumbai. This one is more mercenaries versus Eurogoons. And like, that feels safer and less problematic, I guess. I mean, and also Chris Hemsworth has just become a better actor and movie star. He's a guy who I like nothinged in the Thor movies, and just slowly over time, I remember him in the Ghostbusters movie. He really stole the show, and just like he just keeps being more charming and finding, and like he's really become one of my like favorite leading man in action movies. And like watching him make what would have been a knockoff Arnold movie or a Seagal movie, it warms my soul. It's what I want from movies, and Extraction 2 delivered it. And so that's why for this week it won art. Okay, so we've added a segment from last time, which was I wanted to give you guys a couple recommendations. I watch a lot of movies and TV, and I know there's a billion choices out there, and I want to maybe provide when you're looking for something. So first up is what I want to recommend on Tubi, which is the Netflix is my least favorite. Tubi is my favorite. It's always got what I need. It delivers trash, it delivers class, it delivers horror, it delivers weird. And so this week I'm recommending We Need to Talk About Kevin. It's a movie from about, I want to say 2011, starring The Flash. Also, Ezra Miller is in this movie, playing a much darker character. This film is just like an utter masterpiece. It is like looming dread and like off-kilter storytelling. It feels like a horror movie. It feels like a drama. Tilda Swinton is like just absolutely fantastic in this movie. Every shot in this movie is like every frame a painting. Like it's just like doing so much storytelling in every shot. It follows the mother of a son who was like a school shooter, and just like it's contrasting across timeline of like, you know, like when it happened, before it happened, and like you see the kid as a child, and it's about motherhood and like Lynn Ramsey, the director, is just like doing some of her best work. Like it's, to me, when I'm like a movie I wish more people saw, just because you're just like, it's again, it has a bit of that like Jonathan Glazer Under the Skin vibe, where it's just like it's a little cold at first, but it's so effective, and the relationship between the mom and the son, is like we watch it all happen, is really great. And you have John C. Reilly as the oblivious dad. It's a really classy art house film that just happens to be in on Tubi in the mix of all this other kind of action and trash and sci-fi. So if you're like, oh, I want to see a movie, like this is the kind of thing, like, you know, I talked about Raging Bull earlier. This is a movie like that, where it's like, it's a lot. It can be very emotional, but it is a piece of art that someone really found a way to make within the system. And I think we should give a little bit of a shout out to, we need to talk about Kevin. So you need to see Kevin. And then again, I'm trying to watch more TV. I know I'm always the movie guy, but I've started watching Based on a True Story, which is on Peacock. It's like kind of like true life crime comedy starring Chris Messina and Kaylee. Oh my God, Kuko from Big Bang Theory. Pretty charming. Like, I have not finished the whole series, but it did something in the pilot that I didn't believe they would have done to like the 6th episode. Like, it really kind of jumped the story in an interesting direction. It's well shot. It's really well performed. It's a little off kilter. It's a little darker than you think. And it has a bit of in its own way, a spoof quality, all those Discovery murder shows. And so I really appreciate like them kind of inverting and doing, it's not just a spoof. It really gets into like their relationship and marriage. And so if you're looking for something new in the onslaught of content created by the algorithm for you, I think Based on a True Story is definitely worth your time. So, but we are out of time. So that's this week's show of Connect the Dots. I had a blast talking with all of you, and I can't wait to do it again in 2 weeks. Thank you so much.
I'll see you later, huh?
Wait.
I'll see you later.
I bid you farewell and good luck, morons. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Then in the next episode
will take place 2 weeks from today.
Hey, that's all. I gotta go.